What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Full Circle Podcast. I'm your host, Joel White, aka Coach Joel, aka the handle of whatever social media outlet platform that you found me on. Welcome back to episode 3. We did it, man. I said I'd upload weekly, and this is gonna be my upload for the week. I have some plans for this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, episode 3, man. I'm excited to be here. I got some stuff in the works. I got this adapter piece so I can get more mics on, and then now I just need to get this other mic, which I think I'm gonna more order today. I just got paid, so good stuff to come, man. But yeah, well, other than that, let's hop right into the episode. Yeah, I know it's a bit late. It's Friday, so I know usually I'd upload a little bit earlier in the week. This week's been really busy. I haven't really had time to sit down and record anything. With school getting to that point of the year where everything's centered around finals projects, final exams, stuff like that. So that's been pretty busy. I've also been pretty busy at work, man. We've had guys coming in and out all week for visits, even the week before, and then we're gonna have a bunch more coming in, but it's been going good, man. We at UNLV we signed a few guys. We signed Cam Miles, 6'2" guard from FSU. We also signed MJ Thomas, 6'8" forward from the University of New Orleans, and then we also signed Terrence Ford, 6'1" guard from Tulsa. So all those guys, it was nice, meeting them, and they came in for their visits. Learning the process of like what a Division I visit looks like. I mean, it's interesting, man. Obviously for me, I get to be part of it in terms of production and setting it up. The media team, they do their thing with the photo shoots and stuff. It's been interesting, and I think our team's going to be really solid this year. I think these pickups are going to be really good for us. We're going to definitely be looking into. Got to get some more bigs, some more size. We got a lot of guards right now, but the bigs, they'll come. We also we re-signed Tyron Jones. Shout out Tyron, that's my guy. And then we also re-signed Isaac Williamson, not too far back. Shout out Isaac, that's my guy as well. But it's looking good. I think UNLV we're gonna be solid next year. So. Especially now that the Mountain West is changing a little bit. Some teams went. I think I know Utah State's. I know Utah State is leaving. I don't know what division they're going to, but they're moving up. They're a really good team. But I know our division's gonna look pretty solid next year. But we're gonna get some new teams and some new looks. So that'll be interesting. Anyway. Moving on to our next little segment, kind of like what I did last time. I just posted a video today about me dropping 32 points in men's league. It's unfortunate. 32 points, still came up with an L, but hey man, 32 points. It looked nice on the video, so what can you do? But yeah, so I posted a Bible quote in the comments. So today we're gonna look at Romans 5:3-5, and we're gonna break it down a little bit. So let's break into it. Romans 5:3-5. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. Yeah, this one kind of sat a little deep with me. Obviously, every quote in the Bible sits a little deep with me, but you got to ask yourself, what does this mean? Obviously, on a surface level, we as you go through life, we all struggle, whether it's big scale or small scale. We all go through all these struggles, and whatever the struggle is, big or small. It's what makes you. So every little challenge, especially the big challenges, is what it's what makes you, and it develops your character through perseverance. Because as you go through those big challenges, you're faced with perseverance, as it says here. As you go through perseverance, your perseverance produces character. So hard times build tough people. Hard times build hard people. So, as your character begins to develop, that's when you kind of get a sense of, at least for me personally, as my character has developed individually. That's when you gain a sense of self peace, which gives you a little bit of, hope. And I think that every human kind of needs hope to, just survive. Obviously in this case, in this quote, I think peace and hope, and obviously personally to me too, peace and hope is, the love and joy given to us by God and the Holy Spirit. But you can very much apply this to all areas of your life, just from a character development standpoint. Everybody has their own journey. We all face hardships, and I always hear a quote, and it's a quote that I've lived a good part of my life by since I've heard it. Everything's gonna be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, then it's not the end. So I don't know, kind of like J. Cole said, in that sense, when you're going through those struggles, there's beauty in the struggle, man. So trust God, stay prayed up, and just keep living, because it will get better. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. All right. Moving on to our next topic, man. I want to talk about, obviously going back to what I was talking about earlier, with the guys we signed, and the landscape of college basketball right now. Obviously, one of the most interesting topics is the transfer portal. Obviously, not really just the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal is a beautiful thing for those who don't like being at the school that they're at. However, I'm not a big fan of guys like jumping around, like guys that go to like 3-4 different schools in their career. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do, but I mean, I know the rule before the whole transfer portal restrictions were loosened up a little bit. It was, if you the reason why people didn't transfer is because when you transferred, you had to sit out a year, and then they took that rule away. So I've been hearing, there's been speculation about, I guess like a bill that's been passed where you transfer your first time and there's no penalty, but then after you transfer your second time, then there is a penalty now, and you have to sit out a year. I think that's pretty fair, and that puts a limit on how players move around. A lot of players in college are moving around, and teams are not like, I'll get into this a little bit later, but obviously with the transfer portal comes NIL and NIL deals, which is something that, like, obviously as I've been getting into Division I athletics, it's crazy. It's crazy, bro. I think NIL is a great thing. I know some people don't really think it is for college athletes, but honestly, I think it's a great thing. I think the NCAA and obviously pretty much every program in at least Division I, every program generates X amount of dollars, and there's just so much money in Division I. Obviously, in this case, I'm more so talking about college, NCAA college basketball, and even football too. Those are probably the two biggest that generate the most revenue. So why shouldn't the players who make all this possible get a nice piece of the pot? Hell, even when I was playing Division II in New Hampshire, like I said in the first episode, I was lucky enough to make $33 in NIL money, so I got a little bit of piece of the pot too, which was nice. But obviously, when players, when they do advertisements, they should get paid for their their face, their name, image, and likeness. But as you just continue, obviously in the bigger schools, every school has a different budget based on a bunch of different things. But like what shocked me the most was when I figured out like how much money these like people are making, which is it's crazy, man. I mean, multi-million-dollar deals for high like SEC and like ACC programs, Pac-12 programs, millions of dollars. Like at this point, they don't even need to go pro anymore because they're generating all the money in college, which is not a bad thing at all. It's a beautiful thing. It just, it really just surprises me is all. And I just remember, when I was playing in high school and I was looking to play college, play even, obviously I had dreams of going to Division One. If a Division One coach were to say, "Yo, here's $35 and a hot dog, come play for us," I'd be like, hell yeah, give me a jersey. I'm right there and I'm gonna play every game like my life was on the line. Some of these guys are getting paid now millions of dollars, and I guess it just makes you think, it just hits. Damn, like there was a lot of things I would have done to play that or to do that, and it's just, it's crazy. I mean, some of these guys, they're at this point, it's professional athletics, so obviously all glory to those guys. They deserved it. If you really being a part of a Division One program and seeing like these players come in, like you really see how hard these guys work, and people underestimate how much these guys work, man. Like they really do deserve it. I just think obviously there's some downsides to it, and I think in college, obviously in college basketball, in the landscape of it, you got your low majors, your mid majors, and then your high majors. So guys that go obviously everybody wants to get to the top. So when you're at a low major, and you have a good season, you play good, then you can take that next step to transfer over to a mid major, obviously in hopes of to keep playing and keep getting better so that you can get to the high major. Or obviously some guys go straight from low major to high major. It really just it depends on the person, but there's just so much movement, and I feel like now schools are kind of being used as stepping stones, and unfortunately, obviously UNLV is one of those schools that like guys will come in, and I don't blame them. Like I really don't. This is not me hating on them or hating in any way, shape, or form. I think that it's obviously, but like so. Our school, we only had 2 guys return from the roster last year of I don't even know, and obviously we might still have some guys come back, but I think it's very unlikely, and guys that it's a stepping stone to get to another place. I mean, for example, Dre Gibbs Longhorn, he obviously he came balled out on UNLV, and then now he's going to Texas Tech. He just signed there the other day. And shout out to Dre, man. That's awesome. But my point, circling back to it, I think that it obviously with the transfer portal and the NIL money, it kind of just it ruins a team's ability to like grow a program from the ground up. And it's kind of turning into one of those things where obviously the winning schools stay the winning schools, and the losing schools are going to just be the losing schools and the stepping stones to get to the bigger schools, which, I don't know. Everybody loves a good underdog and a nice little Cinderella story in the, in March Madness. And obviously, that's the beautiful thing about basketball, really, is anything is possible. There's teams, 16 seeds beat number 1 seeds maybe not one is like 1 seeds and 16 seeds, but 2 and 15s, like those major upsets, they happen every year, and that's the beautiful thing about college basketball. But for example, right, like in teams that are just homegrown, where you bring, that's a whole nother thing, is like freshmen. Obviously now coaches don't even look at incoming freshmen coming out of high school, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, which I think coaches should do more of, because I think the potential for those guys are a lot higher But obviously, now that the NCAA can bring in pros, and why would you even look at a high school kid? Obviously, if you could promote or recruit a pro that's been playing pro for a few years in Europe or whatever country, like why would you even bat an eye towards an 18-year-old fresh out of high school that hasn't played a game of basketball at that next level? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it kind of takes away from, like I said earlier, just the team's ability to build that program from the ground up and have guys stay within the program for 4 years and build that culture and have a run. Like obviously an example of that is like UNLV when they won the championship in 1990. Like we got all these guys as freshmen in high school. They stayed in the program for a few years, or at least not every one of them, but I believe a few of the guys on that program, they transferred from other schools, but it was just a I don't know, like a team that stuck around for a long period of time, that had their chance to shine in 1990 when they beat Duke in the NCAA championship. They were able to build something special by getting all these young guys and keeping them and developing them within the system for years to build something special, which I think is something you do not see that anymore because of the transfer portal and NIL money, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just yapping, I'm just talking about it, and I think it's interesting, man. It's just it's just the way things are now, and it's just the landscape of college basketball and college athletics in general, obviously with football too. I feel like football has been a little different. Football's always been one of those sports where it's like the top teams stay on the top, and lower teams stay on the lower side, and the top teams get all the best recruits. Obviously, you'll find a diamond in the rough every now and then, but like for example, I think the introduction of the college football playoff with the bracket that they have now is it's such a good idea in my opinion. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner, but I'm glad that they did it now. But obviously, so like I think in the first round of the playoff this year, it was Oregon State versus James Madison University. Like obviously, everybody knew that, and James Madison, they had a great season. I'm pretty sure that was the team that went undefeated this year, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong, don't quote me on that, but pretty sure. I don't know. But anyway, besides the point. Obviously, James Madison University is not gonna roll in there and roll up Oregon State. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think I like the idea of it, but who was the team that got snubbed? Wasn't it? Did Notre Dame even make it to the playoffs this year? Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Sorry, I got my computer right here. No, they missed it. But obviously, like a team like Notre Dame is gonna put up a better fight, and it's gonna be, they're gonna put up a better fight against like the University of Oregon. So I don't know. I think it's crazy. It's just how some sports are. But that's the beauty about college basketball is like even this year, I forgot what some of the major upsets were. There were a few, but one of the biggest ones I remember sitting watching that Duke and Siena game. I've never heard of Siena in my life. And at halftime, like they were up by a substantial amount of points. I'm like, oh my God, like Duke might lose this game. And obviously they didn't. And then there's other teams that have those Cinderella runs, which I think, like I just said, it's the beauty of college basketball, and the idea of getting like the best of the best players to come to your program. That's never really changed. Power schools have always had and always have been power schools for a reason. I just think before the the landscape of the NIL and the transfer portal restrictions getting loosened up, you know, there was always a possibility to build something for nothing, and there always still is. But you know, the chances of it being that were a lot higher. It's kind of circling back. Obviously, NIL is a really good thing, and players should get paid for being a part of something that generates as much revenue as NCAA athletics does. And I think that the transfer portal is a great thing, but obviously, and then I want to circle back to kind of what I was talking about earlier with players, and obviously coaches don't even look at high school students anymore. And if a coach does, you're got to be a freak athlete, and like one of the top guys, obviously the top guys at the 4 or 5 star recruits coming out of high school that'll go to the high majors and mid majors. But like you got to be that guy, and like those are anomalies now. It's a lot less common than it was a few years ago. It's really hard to kind of go D1 fresh out of high school if you don't go to a high school that's like Bishop Gorman or Mater Dei or whatever, IMG Academy, and obviously there's the whole prep school thing, whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously it was hard enough to make it to college athletics coming out of high school, even kind of before like the transfer portal. It just got a lot more difficult now. I looked up a statistic, and for basketball, only 3.6% of all high school basketball players will go on to play Division II, Division III, Division I, any form of NCAA basketball. So obviously that is not a lot. There's a lot of high school basketball players in the country, and 3.6, that's a lot. Sorry, not a lot, but it's like that's a really low percentage already as it is, and that's counting every school in the country. Division II, Division III. I was a part of that statistic. I was at a Division II redshirting, but so obviously it gets smaller and smaller. Division I is probably only a fraction of that 3.6%. And then obviously it just kind of depends on like what city you're in. Like Vegas, the landscape of like Las Vegas, where I came from. I mean, I went to like a pretty mid-level 4A school. Not a lot of attention coming out of there. But it doesn't really help when your education system is 49th in the country, and you have powerhouse schools like Bishop Gorman that are kind of just running things athletically. But back to the point I just made, when your state is like ranked 49th in the country for education, it doesn't really help, because that is something that coaches kind of look at is education, which I think even for me personally, I think that was a big reason why I went to college, just because of my my grades. I had really good grades coming out of high school. It definitely helped. It wasn't like the only reason, but that's a big reason for college coaches. But yeah, like our education system in Nevada is it's chopped, bro. It's really chopped for the most part. Even like our 5A schools, like our top tier schools, they have their fair share of problems. I went to public school from kindergarten till about 2nd grade, and then from 3rd through 8th, I went to a charter school. I went to Pinecrest, which I think was really. I think that was probably the best option. I would always hear stories about like our public middle school, and it was just. Obviously, I got a little taste of that when I went to high school, because those same kids that went to that middle school went to basic. There's definitely a reason why our state is ranked so low with the education, man. I saw some crazy things. And the crazy thing is like I always heard all these stories about Basic, but I also heard all these stories about every other high school in Nevada. At least every other public high school in Nevada. Every public school had their own set of problems. So I don't know, man. I think I might have a whole episode dedicated to just like things that I saw, like crazy things that I saw when I was in high school. But I mean, I don't know. I definitely want to do an episode about that, but I also want to talk about the other day I was scrolling on TikTok, and I came across this post, and it was a like an AI generated thing with words on it, and it said what's your craziest school story? Drop it in the comments, whatever. So I go in and I'm reading the comments, and then I come across this one comment that was like a whole essay, and I'm reading this comment, and I'm like, this is kind of crazy. Like all these things kind of happened to me when I was in high school. Lo and behold, at the end when I was reading all of it, and it's crazy shit. But like I heard, like I'm reading it, I'm like, damn, like this all kind of happened to me. And then at the end it said, I went to basic high school in Henderson, Nevada. And I was like, oh. And the craziest part of that whole thing that I read, it wasn't even, but like to me, it's not even that crazy because I lived it, but I just remembered it, kind of just forgot about it. But it was a story about a food fight we had one time, and I remember that day very vividly. I remember I was sitting in class, and my buddy sitting next to me. He's like, "Yo, did you hear about the food fight in first lunch?" I was like, "Nah." And then I check my Instagrams, and I see everyone on the story they're talking about this food fight. Kids was just throwing food in the cafeteria, whatever, crazy shit. I didn't think food fights were a real thing, And then I keep seeing on people's like stories and stuff like, yo, food fight at second lunch, like come ready. I'm like, bro, no, like I'm not. We're not doing that. I thought it was kind of a joke because everybody that was at first lunch kind of got in trouble already. So I'm like, there's no way that kids are that dumb that they're gonna do it at second lunch. So second lunch comes around. Second lunch comes around. And so how it was set up was our lunchroom, like there was a stage with the snack shack and stuff where you could like buy stuff, and then a bunch of tables where all the kids would sit. And then I just remember being on the stage in the line waiting to get to the snack shack. I was with one of my teammates at the time, and I remember like we were talking about it. We were like, yo, did you see like all this thing about second lunch of the food fight? Like it's not gonna happen. Next thing I know, I turn my head and I look into the crowd, and it was like, in movies when you see something and like something big's about to happen, so the thing that kickstarts it gets kind of put in slow motion. That's exactly what happened. I look into the crowd, and I see a milk carton flying from one side of the cafeteria to the other side. I remember looking over and just slow motion, it was just flying over, and then boom, it hits the kid, and then food starts getting thrown, and then I just all hell broke loose, bro. Genuinely, I've never in my life seen anything that chaotic and that big of a crowd ever. I mean, everybody started throwing like something, and obviously, like if I get hit in the head with a carton of milk, I'm retaliating to whoever threw that carton of milk. So obviously, this is where it started getting chaotic. It's because all these fights started breaking out. So I remember looking, and I'm just sitting on the stage with my homie, and we're just observing what's happening. And one fight breaks out there, another fight breaks out over there, another fight breaks out over there. The cops come in, try to break everything up, and then I remember specifically, I'm like, okay, obviously, like when a fight broke out, you kind of knew the cops were gonna come in, and at this scale, you knew the whole school was gonna get aired out with pepper spray. So I told my homie, I'm like, yo, like we gotta bounce before the pepper spray gets thrown out there. So we're walking out, the pepper spray gets thrown out, but I remember specifically I'm walking around this corner, and I'm looking at this cop literally fight this kid. So they're squabbling, they're like squaring up, and this kid starts squabbling with this cop. But the cop picks up this kid like on his shoulder, and slams him, and then obviously starts detaining him. And so once I saw that, I'm like, all right, bro, for real, like we gotta get out of here. And so we're walking up the hallway, and then all of a sudden, the damn hard lockdown sirens, which sound like purge sirens, come on, and they're like, yeah, whatever, get to the nearest room that you can find and go into hard lockdown, whatever. And so I remember me and my buddy, we went to the library, and then obviously the alarms are still going off, and people are still running, and people are running through the library and running outside the library trying to get to the classroom, whatever. And then so we had to they made us sit under a desk in the library with the lights off and the doors locked, and we're in hard lockdown. Come to find out, that same kid that got body slammed and tried to get detained, I guess he kept fighting the cop, and then I guess he reached for his gun, and then once he reached for the gun, that's when the hard lockdown got put into place. If I remember right, there was a bunch of other stuff that happened that day, but that was probably the craziest thing that I've ever seen. And I've seen some crazy things at that high school, man. Like I remember the devious licks trend, bro. Probably the most devious. It is the most devious trend I've ever seen. And I remember kids were obviously stealing shit, but I think it was actually the same day as the food fight. I remember seeing a story. Someone sent it to my basketball group chat, and a kid had stolen a whole entire toilet. And I'll put it in this video if I still have it in my camera roll. Someone stole a whole toilet and left like the pipe. And so what they would do is the kids were just flushing the toilet, and just the water was just spraying out. But like literally there was a hole in the wall from where like the plumbing went, like, and the toilet was just gone. But nobody found the toilet. So how the hell does someone not only remove the toilet from the wall, walk out of school with it? And nobody noticed. That day, that was the craziest day I think I've ever experienced at my high school, bro. I honestly, like, people hate on basic, whatever. I honestly wouldn't have wanted to go anywhere else for high school, man. I loved my time at basic, and if it wasn't for things like that, I would not be who I am today, as we talked about earlier. But other than that, I think that's about it for this episode, man. I appreciate y'all for listening. New stuff hopefully coming this weekend. We got some of the homies coming in town, so we'll try to get some content out. Other than that, I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.